So I'm based in the Cork campus. I'm an organizational psychologist, and I wanted to talk to you today about coping with pressure, and how to better cope with it during your time, both in college and beyond. So, and just to clarify too, that you don't have to remember this because all of the slides from today, from all of us, will be available. They'll all be shared with you. So, just as we're talking about pressure, I just wanted to start off my little segment with doing a mini grounding exercise. So, this really is just a little way to relax yourself when you start feeling stressed or under pressure or overwhelmed. It's just a short little exercise that you can do anywhere. Nobody needs to be aware that you're doing it. So I'd like to invite you to sit comfortably in your chairs. So right back into your chairs so that you're supported by the chair. And place both your feet solidly on the ground. So that's important. You're supported by your chair and your 2 feet are on the ground. And with your hands, you just place them wherever is comfortable. And if it's appropriate, you can close your eyes. If not, just pick a point that you can focus on. And I'd like you just, without changing your breath, just to notice your breathing. Just to notice how you breathe in and how you breathe out. And just do that for a few seconds. So then, with your breath, I'd like you to try to slow down your breathing. So, for the count of 4, to breathe in slowly through your nose, and then out for 4 through your mouth. In again through your nose for 4, out through your mouth for 4. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. So could you just repeat this yourselves just for a few times? And when you're ready, just open your eyes and come back. So it's a really simple exercise. I'd encourage you to practice it every day, really. Just let it become part of your toolkit for everyday living. Because when you'll find that if you're used to doing it, that when you need to do it, it'll be like second nature to you and you'll just be able to do it. So, for example, if you find yourself in the study, in the exam hall, and you're feeling under pressure, just do that little exercise privately. As I say, no one needs to know you're doing it. And it helps you ground yourself. It just cuts right across your physical system to help your stress reduce. Okay, so before we go on to talk about the tools and supports for coping with pressure, I just feel it's important to say clearly, first of all, that feeling overwhelmed in college is extremely common. Stress and pressure really peak at times of transition. So when you're changing from something you're comfortable and that you know well into something that you're not familiar with. So, say for some of you, you might be starting a new course with Griffith. You might be moving on to a different year. You might be starting a master's. You might be coming back to education after a few years. And feeling under pressure doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, that you're not good at something, that you're bad at studying. It usually means that you're learning a new skill set. You're learning how a new system works. So you're learning new deadlines, new expectations, new platforms, new standards, and that's mentally demanding for anyone. So try not to be too hard on yourself. And a helpful reframe around this is that stress often means that you're stretching yourself. It doesn't mean that you're failing. So growth is uncomfortable by definition. So we all feel safe within our comfort zones, but it's by stretching beyond our comfort zones that we build confidence in ourselves and our abilities. So discomfort changes to comfort with practice and patience. So coming into a new course, starting a new year, always going to feel a bit under pressure. But as you get used to it and start putting, your toolkit into play, it will get easier. So one of the biggest stress amplifiers is something called imposter syndrome. So I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with it. It's really feeling that you don't belong, that you're an imposter in this particular area of your life. And it often sounds like, how did I think I could manage this? What made me think I'd be able for this course? Or why did I sign up for this master's? I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone else deserves to be here except me. I'm just not able for this. And what's important to know is that this kind of thinking is incredibly common, and especially among high achieving students or people who, are who care a lot about doing well. And it's a psychological pattern, though it isn't a fact. So it's a feeling you're having, it's not a reflection of reality. And the problem is that when you believe these thoughts, you're much less likely to ask questions or use support or ask for help because you feel you're the only one struggling, and that can turn manageable pressure into isolation and overwhelm because you're not asking for help because you feel foolish or you feel it will reflect badly on you, and so you struggle on your own. And so we're encouraging you here today not to do that, to please ask for help. So another big stress amplifier is comparison. So we compare our own worries, confusion, and tiredness to other people's confident outside version. And, we're all familiar with that, with hearing, other people in our lives, be they friends, family, or fellow students saying, oh, yeah, no problem, this is really easy. But it's not a fair comparison and it increases stress very quickly. You need to remember that I'm seeing their outside, but I'm living my inside. So you're comparing their outside to your inside. To them, you may appear to be feeling very comfortable and coping very well. So it's really what's going on inside, and comparing yourself to others doesn't allow you to see that properly. So, one small thing you can try this week when you feel overwhelmed is, instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Try asking, what part of this am I still figuring out? Where am I getting stuck here? What exactly is the problem? And where can I get help with this? So that question naturally points you towards solutions, to information, clarification, or support rather than self criticism. So the next slide, please, Dimpna. Thank you. So, sorry, it's the one before that. Thank you. So it's the job demands resource model. And uh, this is a useful way to understand pressure. It's a simple psychology model. It's used a lot in workplace psychology, but it applies just as well to college life. So when you think of it, you have demands on one side of your life and you have resources on the other. So demands are anything that takes energy from you. So things like deadlines, workload, exams, uncertainty about what's expected, juggling study with work or family, and just trying to keep everything going and trying to keep your head above water, really. Then resources are anything that gives energy back or helps you cope. So it includes things like people in your life, services, skills, information, structure, and time. So things like the library supports that Kelly and Dimpna were talking about, that you've just heard about, lecturers, student services, peers in your class, planning tools, and even simple things like having a realistic timetable. So stress tends to rise when demands increase, but your resources stay low or unused. And that's when you start to feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and stuck. So when you're feeling stress, you really feel that what's being asked of you isn't being met by what you can offer. So there's an imbalance. And that's when you can start to feel under a lot of pressure. And the important takeaway is this, that you can't reduce your demands. You can't always reduce your demands. You'll still have your deadlines, you'll have your exams, but you can increase your resources. And one key way of doing that, of course, is by asking for help. So that might mean getting clarification earlier from your lecturers. Maybe if you're unclear as to what's expected of you in an assignment or in your exam prep, please do ask as early as you feel you need to. Ask your lecturer. That's what they're there for. Um, you can use your support in the library, learning better, planning habits, not trying to do everything on your own. And I suppose, you've been shown a lot of excellent resources today. And the psychology part of that is recognizing that using those resources is not a weakness. It's it's how you manage your pressure. So the next slide and the final slide for today is practical ways to lower pressure. So these are practical things that you can actually try this week. They're simple, but they're based on how our brains work under pressure. And we often think that because something is simple, that it's not really going to work. The real effective way to get these practical tips to work for you is that to practice them, to actually use them. Yes, they're simple, and that is great. It's using them consistently will help. So the first one is the one task rule. So when you're stressed, your brain wants to do everything at once. You start to feel a bit foggy, a bit disorientated. You go from one task to another, and that increases anxiety and reduces focus. So pick one task. Just choose a task, any task, and set a timer for 25 minutes. No multitasking. And when the timer ends, take a short break. So you'll find probably that you will get more done 25 focused minutes than in 2 hours of distracted effort, of not knowing where to start, of moving from one thing to the other. So pick one thing, doesn't have to be the most important thing, just pick one thing. Put the timer on 25 minutes, focus on that one task. The second thing is brain dump. So if your head feels busy, take 2 minutes and write down everything that's worrying you or demanding attention. I find using ChatGPT is actually quite useful for this. Write everything down in your ChatGPT, and you'd be
There is one
interested.
actually in the
It's
chat
quite
there,
interesting
Okay,
Kelly,
what
let me.
happens with
from
them.
Said.
You
The
you
books
can
that are
then
suggested
choose
during
one
lectures are
thing
not
that
listed
will
in the library,
realistically
for
act
instance, in the
on this
MSc in
week. So if you're writing
Pharmaceutical
it
and
down,
Management.
circle it, and that's what you're
It's
going to
So,
act on this week.
probably that I
And that
haven't gotten a
reduces your
QQI
mental
list
load
from a
immediately
lecture, and
because
so I
your
haven't
brain
been
no
able
longer
to
has to
pull
hold
that
everything
those
at once.
listings together.
Because when it's
If
all in your head, your
I
brain
reach out
just
to your
has to keep
lecture, I
remembering it. So
could
it's going
see what
around and
is
around in
available on
circles.
the QQI
Writing it
list or
down
what your
just
lecture
gives your
is doing,
brain a break.
and then we could go from that
The
point.
third thing is deadline mapping.
so I would
So
say
anxiety
it's just a good
increases
chance just to put
when
this in, is that
time
if you
feels
cannot
limited.
find something
Oh,
So
is in your
put your
yes.
list, that you
deadlines
let us
into your
know.
calendar, then block just two
So
study sessions this
maybe
week
you're not looking
ahead.
for correctly. Maybe
And
there's a
seeing
typo
time visually
in the list that your
makes
lecturers
work
have.
feel more
Maybe we
manageable.
don't have it.
So that
But
would
one of the
be
good things
really
about the size
using
of the
your
library and the
calendar
group that
or
we have,
using
we can
an
respond quite
Excel
quickly to
spreadsheet
things like that.
just to
So
Yes.
actually,
we could probably talk to your lecturer about
you
that and
might
get
find
something
I
in
don't
if
have
that
time
does
to
happen.
study,
So
I
make
don't have
sure
time to do
if
this.
you've been
So
recommended list
actually
to class,
fill in
can't
your
find it, don't
calendar
suffer
with
in
what you
silence,
are
just ask
doing.
us. Yeah.
Oh,
And
yes, please do.
you'll find there are blocks where you're not doing
Any other
anything.
questions?
And you'll find
That's
there are
great.
times in your
For the moment,
calendar
there was
where you can
another one from
actually
Anne there, but
do more.
Anna, I'll be answering
You'll
that as I
find
go.
that
It's kind of answerable by
you'll find
my
yourself
bit.
prioritizing
Okay. Will I take
study
over? Will
blocks
I
in the
take
day,
control?
You may
and
take control. I
putting
will
them
stop the
Take
writing them
share.
down is really very helpful because it it, I suppose
No, just
it's
bear with me,
realistic.
guys.
There is no point
Okay,
in saying,
can
I'm
you hear
going to
me?
study all day on
See the
Saturday,
screen? Great.
when you
Okay.
know that when you get up on Saturday morning, you're just not going to do it. And then you start feeling guilty. And then the day goes on and you do nothing. And then you go out Saturday night and you've done nothing, but you had a day planned. So it's much more effective if you're realistic and say, okay, I can spend 2 hours on Saturday. I can spend 1 hour on Saturday, whatever. You time block that and that's protected. And you treat that like you're going to a job. Nothing can interfere with that. And then once you have that time block planned, you decide what you're going to study in it. So that when that time arises on Saturday, 3 o'clock comes around, you know, okay, I'm going to do this module and this is what I'm going to do today because you've already decided in advance what you're going to do. So you don't spend half of your study session thinking about what you're going to do. And also, what I have found very helpful for myself is in terms of assignments. When I get assignments for a particular course, I just divide it into the modules, decide what, once I know what assignments I have for each module, and I put it all on one spreadsheet so that I know what assignment is coming first, what's second, what's third, etc. And I put the dates that they're due next to it, and I focus on the first one and I divide that into what's required of that assignment. So, what do I need to do to get this assignment done? And then I break that into times. So, say if I have 4 weeks to do an assignment, my first assignment, I break that into what am I going to do each of those weeks to get that assignment done. And then within that week, I'm going to say, okay, for this week, what do I need to get done each day or whatever day I'm going to do the study on? And it just, as I get those achieved, I just color code them in green. And it's quite good psychologically to see, oh yeah, I've achieved that. And you see the color code changing as you go through your worksheet. So you just pick something like that will work for you because we all study differently, but those things are quite good tools to use. The 48-hour rule. So if you've been stuck or confused about something for more than 48 hours, ask someone. So it's not because you're failing, but because early clarification prevents small problems from becoming big ones. So if you find you get your assignment on Monday and you start looking at it, and by Wednesday you're really no further along, even though you've been looking at it, then there you're 48 hours. You know you need to ask someone for help with that. You're not going to wait till next week or the week after. You're going to keep a note and put it into your calendar and ask in 48 hours. And then the final thing that I wanted to talk about is the comparison reset. So it's when you catch yourself thinking everyone else is coping better than me. Try this, as we mentioned earlier. I'm seeing their outside, but I'm living my inside. And that one sentence in itself can stop a lot of unnecessary self criticism because self criticism can just stop you in your tracks. So, just to finish off, I just want to say that managing pressure isn't about being tougher or being more intelligent or being a better person or pushing harder. It's about using the system around you, using the people, the services, the skills, the supports, and the structure that are there. So it's a skill that will help you in college, and it's exactly that same skill that helps in working life too.